A recent study released just a short while ago said that the leading cause of death for children in the U.S. is now by gun violence. How do we cope with that ourselves and help our children cope with that reality as they're going to school and out and about in their regular life as well in today's world? Joining us now to talk about that and help us with some of these answers is Dr. Melanie Schwartz, back with us once again from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness. Dr. Schwartz, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So again, as we said, a recently released statistic stated that the leading cause of death for children in the U.S. is now gun violence. When or if children hear about this, or as they hear and they see more of these news stories about mass shootings in which children are killed, certainly these school shootings, and they question their parents about it, how should the parents go about entering those discussions and those conversations with their kids about this reality that, unfortunately, we are now facing, it seems, in more mass than we ever have?
Well, it is unfortunate that this is a conversation that we do have to have with our kids these days. Well, what I would suggest is that everyone does sit down with their kids that are of school age and who are having active shooter drills at their school, which if you're in elementary school, it's happening. And to sit down and give them basic information. You don't have to feed them all of the information that's out there, or even about necessarily what happened specifically, but then answer their questions in a child-friendly way. Make sure that you remind them that they are safe and everyone around them is protecting them and keeping them safe, and their school is safe and has protective measures to keep them safe. I'm sure the school is reiterating that as well, but just, make sure you're educating them, because if they don't have information, that creates anxiety. So a little bit of information is fine. A lot of information, like we all have, and our anxiety is elevated at this point, is not healthy for them.
And so when it comes to the kids who are seeing these stories and hearing these stories about mass shootings in schools all throughout the U.S., even right here in Oakland County is unfortunately included in that regard, they get nervous about just going to school. They don't know what's going to happen on any given day. None of us do. And that, of course, causes that anxiety on so many different levels for everyone involved, anybody that is going into the school or into the community. So for kids that are in distress about this wave of school shootings that's been happening lately all over America, how do we talk them through that and maybe if not ease their worries, at least give them some perspective on this issue and how they can help others in their school location?
Well, I definitely think it's important to, if your child is having a lot of anxiety about it, to address it with the school and let the school talk to them as well. Whether you do it as a group with, whoever's in, whether it's the social worker or the teacher or the counselor, plus the parents, that may be a good idea to ease the anxiety. That way, it's not just the parents saying, oh, you're safe, you're fine. The school is also reiterating and saying, no, we have your back, you're okay, you're safe. It's very important not to keep the kids home. We're going into summer, so that's gonna happen, but, and we won't, obviously the school shootings won't happen for 3 months now, but it's important to, make sure the kids are going to school, not keeping them home, because that's just gonna elevate their anxiety. So making sure that, there is a consistency, there is a routine. If they see that you're sending them to school, then they know that you feel safe sending them to school, then they're going to feel more safe.
More information can be found. You can get in contact with Dr. Schwartz and the other experts at Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness by visiting their website, viewpointpw.com. That's viewpointpw.com for more information. And so as more people are talking about the gun issue, about the mass shooting issues, and a lot of times the arguments or the discussions in these cases turn to mental health, and so many would make the argument that this isn't necessarily a gun problem, it's more of a mental health problem. Others would say vice versa, and many are right in the middle and would say it's a little bit of both. But there is that fine line between mental health issues that lead somebody to do something that is out of character for them, that is violent, that is something that's very regrettable, I would imagine, for some people that do commit violence. But at the same time, there is a difference between a mental health issue and just hatred. How do we veer through that line and uncover one versus the other as we're identifying the issues at hand here that are leading to these tragedies?
Well, Okay, I know this is a very controversial, discussion to have, and everyone has their opinion on it. You know, somebody who is making a decision like this is not of sound mind, okay, or else they would have their rational thoughts to tell them that this is a bad idea, this is not okay. So from my perspective, there is a mental health component to it that starts it, okay. Obviously guns are the means to what they are using to act on their hatred or their mental health issues, whatever is going on for them. But digging through it, I think if you look at it, there has to be some irrational, extremely irrational thinking going on that's going to lead to these acts of violence, and that is going to stem from mental health in some way, shape, or form.
We're joined by Dr. Melanie Schwartz from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness on the Oakland County Megacast. More information can be found on their website at viewpointpw.com. Learn more about their services and their experts over there that you can get in contact with should you be in need or be seeking counseling in any form. Again, that's viewpointpw.com for more information. And so on another issue, the economy's looking like it's in a downturn. Inflation is at a high. Gas prices, of course, are tightening people's pockets. And when financial issues and stresses arise for people and for families, sometimes that can become so dominant in their thinking, and that affects their behavior, it affects their attitude, it affects their mood, and that affects everyone else around them. So for adults in particular, when things get financially stressful, what steps can they take psychologically to ease that tension, at least enough to where it doesn't further affect others and other situations in their lives?
Well, I think we've all been at a heightened level of stress and anxiety over the last couple years, over 2 years at this point. And we haven't really had any relief from it, even though we try. And, the world has opened up and we are starting to do things a little differently in terms of COVID. Obviously, there's these other things that keep popping up for us that are very stressful and affect us personally. And so there's one piece of advice that I would give that is extremely important. I have a print on my wall, and it talks about attitude and how we don't have any control about the things around us, but attitude is about 90% of how we deal with something is what happens to us. So it's really important on your attitude about it. There is a solution. Even if at times it doesn't feel like it, there's a solution. And if you need help, ask for it. Okay. Somebody will help you find it. And if you can't find help, go on the internet. You can find the resources. They are there to help you in some way, shape, or form. There are so many resources out there that are being utilized right now because people are struggling for a variety of reasons and have been for the last couple of years. Another piece, too, is to make sure that you are balanced with some of this, because we are getting, bombarded with this information and how stressful it is and it's affecting us. And I think it's important, please limit your watching or reading or hearing about some of the stressors that are going on, because it's the same information. We see it, we feel it, we know it, and it's not healthy to just obsess over it, which I see people doing a lot, is really focusing on it and reading and watching. Get the information, but then you don't need to, keep CNN on all day long, or read about it, in the news all day long. So there has to be that balance there. Okay. If you are really struggling emotionally with it and the stress just seems like it's too much, reach out, find a therapist, talk to a crisis line, talk to a friend, family member, colleague, whoever that might be for you, but make sure you're talking about it and not keeping it in, because, we a lot of times internally, keep all of the stuff inside and don't address it. And then it just builds up and builds up. And because of all the stressors that just keep piling on, eventually that will lead to additional mental health issues.
Can you speak to just how important that moment is when someone has let those issues that they're having, or those thoughts that they're having out of their head and to another person, whether that be an expert like those of you over at Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness, or someone else in your life? I mean, your business's slogan is people start to heal the moment that they feel heard.
Mm-hmm.
How important is that moment in alleviating at least initial stressors from some of these psychological issues that they may be having?
Extremely important. I see a lot of people who come in to see me for anxiety, and a lot of the anxiety that is occurring for them is built up because they're not talking. They're keeping it in. So it is probably the most important factor, that you are not holding in stress, that you are talking about it to somebody and making sure that you're addressing it. Even if you don't have anyone to talk to and you just write it out, or type it out and just get it out of your head, it has to, if it's in your head, it's just circling, doesn't have anywhere to go. And so you just obsess about it and focus on it. And that's going to lead to increased anxiety and depression.
We're joined by Dr. Melanie Schwartz from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness, joining us on the Megacast. More information on their website, viewpointpw.com. That's viewpointpw.com for more information. And continuing on, also that's what's becoming a even bigger issue over time has been suicide. It's becoming a bigger issue, particularly among young people and among adults. What are the signs that people should be looking out for? Because as we go through time, some of those signs that we're told to look out for have been consistent, some have changed, and there's different levels of severity and different ways to intervene at those different levels.
Yes, absolutely. A lot of times, obviously, we get the kids, adults who come to us or go to their school counselor or teachers and report how they're feeling, okay, or write about how they're feeling, okay. At that level, obviously, the person involved can intervene and, get them to the hospital or contact the parents or whatever needs to happen, okay, contact the police. So that's obviously that's the most obvious way that people are talking about how they're feeling. Some of the behaviors that we're seeing are isolation, not eating, not sleeping. They might be giving away things that are theirs, that are, cherished material objects of theirs, and they start giving them away to people. You'll see, their mood will look different. They'll look depressed, or they just will look unhealthy. Sometimes you can absolutely see that. So these are some of the things. Decreased sleep and not eating will increase their thinking about suicide. Okay. Because if you're not regulated, if you're, not feeling good, if you're not eating and sleeping, and that's just going to increase the level of depression for them. You're going to hear people talking about feeling hopeless, that things aren't going to change. They're always going to be this way. So why should I go on? So you'll hear that. At that level, intervention can occur also, whether it's getting into therapy, seeing a psychiatrist, getting into a day treatment program, or even, if flat out they're saying that they're suicidal, then going to the hospital. We also do see more frequently than we have before is the people who are silent and don't, you would never know that anything was going on with them. And so that's kind of the most difficult population of people who are committing suicide, because there's no one who can intervene at that point because they aren't aware that anything's going on. Okay. And so that, one tiny little sign is enough to have them talk to somebody. In this day and age, it's important to make sure everybody's just talking and not holding stuff in. If you have a teenager that's just in their room all the time, trying your hardest to get them out and just kind of talk to them. Talking is key right now with all of the issues that are going on. And so that's one of the preventative ways, is just making sure that your kids are talking to somebody, or adults are talking to somebody. There is no difference at this point between kids and adults and suicide. It's across the board. I'm seeing it. I'm hearing about it from the police department, that, the suicide calls that they're getting are very, they're increased significantly. So it's across the board based on all the stressors that are going on in this world. But no matter what, make sure you seek help from a professional in some way, shape, or form if you identify any of the symptoms.
Melanie, Dr. Schwartz, so many people that may be in need of some counseling or may want to speak to an expert about their issues. they are reluctant to do so for financial reasons. Maybe they know it's not covered by their insurance provider, or they're worried it isn't, or if they know they're going to have to pay out of pocket, that can be a big deterrence to them, and that can be a huge problem. So what sort of financial assistance is available for those that are seeking psychological care that they can tap into if they need to speak to a professional?
Well, that's where they reach out to the community mental health centers like Easter Seals or Oakland Family Services. Okay. They see people at a very, very low rate based on what people can afford. And so financial issues are not a concern seen going to those places. Okay. Community mental health centers. Also, you can reach out to Common Ground and they will assist you to find the right services for you. We at Viewpoint, we have a student on staff all year long who sees people at a very, very low sliding scale just for that reason as well, for people who can't afford therapy. So there are options out there. Calling a crisis line if you're in crisis. So there are options out there. It's just reaching out to them.
We're joined by Dr. Melanie Schwartz from Viewpoint Psychology and Wellness. More information on their website and to get in contact, viewpointpw.com. That's viewpointpw.com for more information. Dr. Schwartz, before we let you go, anything else that our viewers and listeners should know at this time or be considering at this time on the psychology and mental health front that we haven't discussed today?
It's a really, really, really probably the hardest, as far as I know, in my career, in my life, time in this world right now. It doesn't seem to be letting up. It's very difficult. And, that's going to increase your level of anxiety or depression. Even if you've never had it before and you don't know what it is, but you're feeling different things that are uncomfortable for you, just reach out, ask your doctor, talk to a friend, talk to somebody, and, see what's going on and try to find some help in some way, whether it's Viewpoint or it's another practice or it's community mental health or, if it's needed, a hospital. There is help out there. Just ask and it can be found.
Dr. Schwartz, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you.